Okay, well, welcome to those of you who are here. I know we probably will have some more people hop on here in a little bit, but to start with, um, tonight we're gonna talk about the showroom where the actual cages are set up, the place where the show actually takes place. And then we're also going to talk about the judges who judge the show and the process involved with becoming a judge, and show some examples of judges in action. Afterwards, after we discuss those two things, I want to take a minute and just update everybody on what avian influenza is doing in the state of Utah right now. And I'll update you on that when we are finished. So to start with, I know we've discussed in the past, there's the American Poultry Association, and there's also the American Bantam Association. Both of those organizations kind of work together in the poultry world. There are a few minor differences. They are two separate organizations, but they work together when a show is taking place, and they both have rules and guidelines that people, the show organizers, have to adhere to when they are putting on a show. And those rules and things like that are spelled out in the American Poultry Association yearbook. The ABA also puts a yearbook out that has their rules in it. The rules are very similar as to what the show is supposed to be like, and the rules that the show organizers have to follow. So for an example, the APA and ABA want the showroom to look nice. They want the facility to be well lit, so the judges can judge the birds in a well lit room and be able to see well the bird that they are judging. The birds themselves need to be housed appropriately. So yes, they are put in cages, and they are kept in those cages unless they are taken out by the judge for judging. But those cages need to be big enough to house that bird comfortably. You don't want to stuff a great big bird in a little tiny cage and call it good for 3 days. The cage has to be the appropriate size for the bird that is in it. If the show is going to be a longer show, 3 days is usually the maximum. Like 2.5 days is usually the maximum that a bird is kept at a show. There are shavings in the cages that are replaced routinely, so that the bird has clean shavings. That works well for the comfort of the bird, but it also works well for the keeping the bird clean for judging. There's always a food and water container that is provided for the birds. Even on a show, some shows only last for half a day. They're called one-day shows. You put the bird in, it's there for judging, and then it's taken out and taken home. Even for half-day shows, the rules state that the bird has to have food and water provided for it for those few hours that it is there at the show. The APA is very clear that the treatment of the bird is humane at all times, and they do not allow any kind of inhumane treatment to take place at their shows. They are very clear about that. The showroom needs to be laid out in a way that it makes it convenient for the judge to go through in a timely manner. The show has to be look as nice as it can, and I'll show you some examples of a couple of different things when we get into the pictures of the showrooms. As far as judging goes, there are rules for the judges as well. So let's back up for a minute, and we'll talk about the process that needs to take place in order for somebody to become a judge for the American Poultry Association and or the American Bantam Association. A person who is interested in becoming a judge applies for to participate in the program. It's simply an application to participate. They send in that application with an application fee, And the judging committee with both organizations looks over the application and decides whether or not that person can even be accepted into the program. There are some pretty strict things that the person who is applying to be a judge has to do. Somebody who has been convicted of a felony cannot even apply for the position of a judge in either organization. The guidelines are quite strict in who can apply. So they apply for the program. If they're accepted, then they begin their apprenticeship, which means that they have to study and train under 8 different judges over the course of between 2 and 3 years. It has to be at least 2 years, no more than 3 years. So they study under at least 8 judges during those 2 to 3 years. They have to travel to the shows that judge is going to, and they have to train under that judge. And they usually clerk for that judge, and we'll talk about clerking in a minute, so that they can train under that judge. At the end of that 2 to 3 year period, they again approach one of the organization that they're wanting to judge with and request being able to be examined to take the test, which is both a written test and it's a technical test where they actually do a judging trial, and they have to pass both of those tests before they can be given their judge license. If a judge is accepted by the APA and they want to be a dual judge, meaning that they can judge for both the APA and the ABA, they have to complete both programs. And so these judges put a lot of time, a lot of effort, and a lot of money into training to be a judge. Once they are accepted as a judge, they can then be hired as judges for a show. They do have to adhere to the APA. I'll read you the APA Judges Code of Ethics. This is something, it's kind of like they have to promise to do this. Ethics is that which you do that is professionally fitting or correct. As a licensed poultry judge, you are constantly in the eye of show management and the exhibitor. Your conduct in the showroom must be such that you are thought of and spoken to as a consummate professional. This conduct must include honesty, good judgment, excellent deportment, and fair consideration for both the birds and the exhibitors. Any actions in or outside of the showroom must show good judgment that will be considered as ethical and professional in nature. Under no circumstances should you behave in such a manner that it would reflect negatively on yourself or the American Poultry Association. So when they become judges, they agree to this code of ethics, not only when they are judging, but they have to abide by this code of ethics in their everyday life. They are watched very closely. It doesn't happen very often, but sometimes a judge can be called out on something that they've done in their personal life, something that they've done in the showroom, and they can actually lose their license if they have done something that is deemed unworthy of being an APA or an ABA judge, and they will lose their license. So it's a big deal to be a judge and to judge at these shows. If somebody wants to know how much money these judges make, not very much. Usually they donate their time to judging, and they only want to be reimbursed for the travel money that it took them to get there. So travel money and then being put up in a hotel and having meals provided is what most judges receive for their time in judging a poultry show. Sometimes some judges will ask for a little bit of money, but it equals to be like 25 to 50 cents per bird that they are judging. So it's really not a lot of money. So let's come down here and we'll share the screen. Hopefully. me see if I can get out of this, and here we go. All right, also, when I decided what we were going to talk about tonight, I went to one of the, it's not necessarily it's not run by the American Poultry Association, but there are a lot of members of that organization who belong to this group on Facebook. And I asked for people to give me any pictures of showrooms or judging. And I got so much stuff that I had to go through and pick and choose what we were going to use tonight. People are just phenomenal people and are willing to help out in any way, shape, or form. So this first picture that we're looking at here, this is a show hall in Ohio, and it's actually one of the, so the APA will have what's called a national every year, and it's usually held in Ohio. This is a 10,000 bird show. It's huge. Planning for and setting up this show, I can't even imagine what goes into organizing one of these shows. So this is just one of the buildings they use. The show is laid out very nicely. It looks good. Sometimes they have to double stack the cages. We'll talk about that in a minute. But they try not to do that if they can help it. But when you have 10,000 birds that you have to have cages for, sometimes you do have to double stack the cages. The lighting in this room is phenomenal. The way that the floor plan is laid out, every row is nice and even. They measure between the tables to make sure that everything looks good. They have it organized by large fowl and bantam, and then the classes in each one of those groups is laid out, which makes it very easy for the judge. This is another building from that same show. They have to use multiple buildings to fit all of the birds in there. Again, beautifully laid out, beautiful building. And you can see that the cages are set up with the coop cards on them and ready to go. They provide shavings for the birds. The people who organize the show provide all of the shavings, and they put those shavings in the cages. So when the exhibitor gets there to put their bird in the cage, that cage is set up and ready to go. This is an example of the double stacking that I was talking about. Again, it's not ideal, but sometimes it is necessary. So they will usually put large fowl on the bottom and then bantam cages on top. There's still plenty of room in between the cages, and the lighting is still really good. The judge takes the bird out of the cage so they can still have good lighting for that. One thing about this setup that I'm not a fan of is this right here, where the exhibitors have put their carriers and everything underneath the cages. They need some place to store them, don't get me wrong, but if they're going to store them underneath, they should at least push them in a little bit so that the judge isn't tripping over these cages as they go up and down the aisles. These two garbage cans are here simply to keep people out of the aisle while the judge is judging. That is one of the rules of the shows, is that the judge is not interrupted by anybody, and he doesn't have to worry about anybody else in the aisle. This is the judge right here. This gentleman is allowed in the aisle because he is actually the clerk for the judge. Every judge, ideally, they have a clerk assigned to them, and it's that clerk's responsibility to let the judge know what birds are coming up. And also they keep the records for the show committee so that the show committee can have those records all done after judging. This gentleman's name is Eric Cooch. He's out of California. He's a wonderful man, a good judge. I really enjoy watching him judge. This is actually at one of the Utah Fancy Poultry Association show, where we don't allow people to put their cages underneath, or their carriers underneath the birds' cage, they have to store them somewhere else. It just keeps it looking that much nicer. So this is champion roe, and he is selecting champion bantam. And so right here, he's judging a white leghorn. Good man. More examples of judging. I'm not sure what kind of bird this judge has in his hands. This is his clerk. Again, you can see that the aisle is blocked off so that people cannot enter the aisle while judging is taking place. This is a good example of the lighting is okay in this building. They probably opened up that door for ventilation, but it probably affects how the judge is able to see this bird. He probably had to put the bird in more light to be able to see what he was looking at. This judge, I wanted to use this picture because this judge looks very professional in his jacket. Obviously, they're going to get dirty with shavings and things like that, but they should look professional. This gentleman's name is Tom Roebuck. He is judging a large fowl cochin. Another judge. I don't know the names of all of them. I apologize for that. Judging the modern game class. I use this picture because I wanted to point out that even though this judge is holding the bird that he is judging in his hands, he is always looking at the birds that are in the cages because he wants to see how they're standing, how they're positioning themselves, and how they're showing. So he will look at this bird, and he'll look at this bird very closely, but he also wants to keep an eye on these birds that are in the cages. This is a Muscovy duck that he has. Not all shows are held in buildings. There are outside shows. The lighting is a little bit better in outside shows because you have the natural light. This gentleman is judging a cochin. Another example is Paul double stacking, but it still looks good. I am not sure the breed or variety. It's probably some kind of a leghorn. Again, the judge looks very professional. This is a good example of a well-done show hall. The decorations in this building are phenomenal. I can't imagine the time and effort it took to get to going into this. Very well done. If any of you have watched Chicken People, I think it's called, on YouTube, it was a movie done about showing chickens. This gentleman, this judge, starred in that. His name is Brian Carricker, and he is judging a bantam cochin. Again, just a picture of a judge with his clerk. Double stacking again, the judge with his clerk judging a large fowl cochin. Very professional looking, looks at every part of the bird. This is a white-crested black Polish. So I'll use this picture because I wanted to point out right here. This is called a judging stick. It is used especially in birds that need to be trained to show. The judge will use this to help position the bird, to see if the bird is trained appropriately. It's usually made out of metal. Some judges use like a wooden one, but a lot of judges do use a judging stick. Very large fowl cochin. So most people think of a chicken show or a poultry show as just chickens, but there are geese, there are ducks, there's guinea hens, there's turkeys, This is an example of a judge handling a Sebastopol geese, which is a very large bird, and they are not easy to handle. I wanted to point out that there are both men and women judges. Not as many women as men, but they are out there. She is looking at probably, I think that's a black Wyandotte. She's making sure that the legs are the right color. Using that judging stick again. I used this picture because I wanted to point out that even though she is handling chickens, she is very well dressed, and even down to the jewelry. She is judging this entire class of white silkies that extends probably all the way down to here and then around the other side. That's a big task. This is a large fowl Brahma. She's looking for correct wing color and making sure that the entire wing is grown in. These pictures show, so in the ducks, these are runner ducks. They have to, because they're runner ducks, they have to run and hold themselves in the right way. And so they have these pens set up so that the judge can actually watch these runner ducks run. It's part of the judging for these particular birds. They are the only bird that have to perform for the judge. Another pen of runners. Another pen of runners. Interesting ducks. This picture shows so that she's now making her selection for champion bantam, and here is everybody lined up to see what her selection is going to be. So they are under a lot of pressure sometimes. In large shows, let's take, for example, that 10,000 bird show that we saw earlier. We cannot expect one judge to judge 10,000 birds in a day. So a lot of shows will hire multiple judges to judge the show. And each judge is given a section of the show to judge, and they only judge that section. They pick their champions from those birds. And then at the end of the show, everybody brings their champions up, and they all have to agree on who the grand champion bantam, the grand champion large fowl, and the grand champion of show is. So they do their individual judging, but then they all get together afterwards to make their final choices. Most judges are comfortable judging 400 to 500 birds a day. More than that, it does get very tiring. So when we have a show, we hire one judge, but our shows are usually around 500 to 600 birds, and they're comfortable doing that. All right, I think that's it for that. Does anybody have any questions on the judging process? That we're going to talk a little bit more about judging. I'm actually going to explain the process for finding the best bird in the show next time, and we'll actually do a short demonstration on judging. So I will have some birds that I will judge, I hope. Avian influenza might affect that a little bit, but I kind of want to show you what's involved in judging that way. So if there's no questions on judging or showrooms, then let me update everybody on avian influenza. It has been found in Utah. It's been found 2 times. So the first one was a little over a week and a half ago in Utah County. I believe it was in a backyard flock. So just only 7 birds were affected and depopulated because of that, because of the avian influenza. It was a small flock. The second reported case is in Cache County, and I do not know the particulars of that particular event. although it has been called devastating by the state vet. So more information, I'm sure, will probably be forthcoming in regards to the Cache County one. But just so you're aware, it is here. It's in Utah, it's in Idaho, it's in Wyoming. It is, I don't think it's been found in Nevada yet, but it will shortly. So right now we are in the hotspot for avian influenza because migration of waterfowl is taking place. They're working their way up from Mexico up through the United States to their nesting grounds in the northern United States and in Canada up into Alaska. And Utah is right under one of their main migratory paths. So they are coming here by the thousands. And again, waterfowl are one of the main carriers of avian influenza. They are not necessarily susceptible to it, but they are a carrier of it. So practicing biosecurity, again, is extremely important. Keeping your birds inside if you can. If you can keep them inside all the time, that would be the best thing to do. Changing your shoes before you go into their coop. Have a set of shoes that is specifically for that coop so that you're not walking from across the lawn and picking up something on the bottoms of your feet and then taking it into your coop. If you can just enter your coop and have a new pair of shoes to put on that's just for that coop, that would be the ideal thing to do. Do not let people who have chickens, it sounds harsh, it really does, but if somebody's coming to your place and you know they have chickens or ducks or geese, don't let them buy your chickens. Some people are saying don't even let them on your property. I'll leave that up to you, but they can be bringing anything into your flock. So don't, right now is not a good time to be buying birds. It's not a good time to be selling birds. If you do buy new birds, then quarantine them for at least 3 weeks in a place that is totally away from the rest of your flock. Some people have asked about buying chicks. Is it okay to buy chicks right now? And it probably is. If you're getting them from like IFA, Tractor Supply, Cal Ranch, then you're probably safe buying chickens from there. But again, I would use caution and certainly quarantine them from your other chicks or from the rest of your chickens. It's real. It's out there, and it's sad is what it is. Not only are we losing, I think the last count I saw was 33 million birds have been euthanized in chickens, and that's a devastating number. But it's also taking its toll in the wild bird population. And we're losing a lot of wild birds because of it too. So ducks and geese aren't the bad guys. They're not doing this on purpose. They're not out there spreading this willy-nilly just because they can. It's just something that they carry and they don't show symptoms of it, but they definitely can pass it on to our backyard poultry and to commercial poultry. So if you any questions, feel free to contact me. My email address is kathyashcroft@yahoo.com. You can email me with questions if you have questions, and I'll answer them to the best of my ability. We recently had a Zoom conference call with the state vet where, and this was before it ever got to Utah, where he gave us the same information that I'm basically giving you about biosecurity. If any of your chickens are showing any symptoms of avian influenza, it's important that you get hold of the state vet and let them know. We want to keep this from spreading. And again, that's why That's why depopulation has to take place. If they can nip it in the bud before it spreads to other flocks, then it's better for everybody. So I want to applaud the people who have had to have their flocks depopulated. They did the right thing by contacting the state vet and by having them come out and test their birds because their birds were sick. They did the right thing. So I don't want you to lose sleep over this, but it is something I'm losing sleep over it, but I don't want you to lose sleep over it. It's out there, it's real, but do the best you can to protect your birds, and we'll all cross our fingers that everything's going to be okay. I'm noticing some chats, I think. Let me just take a look here.
Those are just links that I put in. I put in the link to Extension's article regarding avian influenza. And then I also included the latest link from the Utah Department of Ag. And then in that article, they actually shared a toolkit in which homeowner or flock owners can go to watch for problems within their flock. So I shared that link and then your email.
Okay, all right, thank you. Symptoms to watch for, neurological problems. So stumbling, weakness, which can be a lot of things. Stargazing is one of them. So your bird is just kind of standing there looking up into the sky. The state vet mentioned it's called cathedral syndrome. So you walk into your coop and it's quiet, just quiet. Instead of clucking and purring and crowing, you're hearing nothing and your birds are just standing there. That's a bad sign. Swollen combs, swollen earlobes, swollen wattles, swollen around the eyes. Those are all symptoms of avian influenza. Bruising or a purple color on the legs of birds. Not necessarily swelling, but a purple discoloration that looks like bruising. A bird that is has nasal discharge, that's another symptom of it. Some of these things can go along with a respiratory illness that is not a big deal and it's not going to kill your entire flock. But that's why they come out and they test. They test your birds and they say, yeah, they've got it, or they test your birds and they say, no, they don't. If you're having sudden death in your flock, like I have birds that just up and die for no reason. We all do. Birds die for no reason, and well, there's a reason, but we just don't know what it is. But if you're having sudden multiple losses, then that is something that needs to be addressed. So again, don't want you to panic, don't want you to lose sleep, but be aware, watch your birds closely, and do whatever you can to practice good biosecurity. And again, we'll cross our fingers that it does its thing and it moves on and is over, because we're all tired of things like we're tired. All right, any other questions, anything? All right, I'll see you in a couple of weeks and we'll find the best bird in that group of 10,000 and we'll show you how it's done.
Thank you, Kathy. We appreciate you again. And yeah, we will get this recording going. And those of you that have been wanting the previous recordings, I was explaining to Kathy, I'm having a hard time getting them uploaded on our YouTube channel. So, but I'm working on it. Hopefully within the next couple of days, I can figure out why it's giving me a hard time. So in the meantime,